Hey friends! Okay, so today I thought I'd do a library roundup. So like a roundup of my latest stack of library books which I finally finished reading. So the library's opened up in Singapore, I think July? July, I feel like it's July. And it's been great. Like honestly, even though I had such a huge to be read pile, I actually honestly miss the library a lot. I think it's just like finding books that you don't have, and then yeah, I always finish them first cause you only have 3 weeks, right? So okay. Uh I will actually review all of these one by one on my blog, but I just want to do a quick like talking about them because I really do like to talk about books, and sometimes when you talk through things you kind of find things that you don't or didn't think about before. Okay, so the first two are Agatha Christie novels. This is Sad Cypress. I'm reading this for the A Year with Christie 2020 read along a bookstagram, and I honestly really enjoy it. I've been reading Agatha Christie, like Hercule Poirot, for I think since secondary school, but I haven't really read Miss Marple, never read Mr. Quinn. So I think like being able to explore her work in a more systematic way has been really valuable to me. So this one is actually like starts with a court case that Eleanor has been accused of murdering her rival in love, and then like this other guy who likes her called Peter Lord, who's a doctor, kind of asks Poirot to please save her. Yeah, he doesn't do a good job of like pretending to be impartial. He's clearly biased, but Monsieur Poirot loves love. It's kind of interesting cause like the last part of the book, I mean obviously we know that she's gonna be innocent. I don't think this is not one of those huge like trick like murder of Roger Ackroyd, right? But it's like last part is like she loved Roderick Wellman. What of it? With you she can be happy. So it's kind of like, oh, I never really quite get Christie romances. I know she wrote some as Mary Westercott. Um, Too bad the library doesn't have much. I may have to find a copy to see like if they feel more believable to me, right? Okay, so the next one I read is Mr. Quinn. I actually first found out about Mr. Satterwife and Mr. Quinn through a collection that I read, also from the library, called the Harlequin Tea Party, and I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like, are they a duo? Are they not? I have no idea. So this is like a series of stories about Mr. Quinn. So Mr. Quinn is mysterious. He may not even be human. I'm not sure. It's the book's like he just appears and he just disappears, and okay, that's fine. I'm cool with it. I like the stories because they're very different from most of it. I don't really like Tommy and Tuppence. Maybe I will like them better if I reread them now. But I really like this duo. I think they're quite unconventional, and it's quite clear that like Mr. Sato is a bit older. He's ready to step into the drama of life instead of just watching it. So he does take part, especially towards the later books. Like it's quite funny because actually he's totally capable of like interfering in people's lives, like solving mysteries by himself. But he just needs Mr. Queen to be this catalyst. So Mr. Queen, he kind of knows things, but honestly sometimes he just needs to be reminded of Mr. Queen, and then like woof, Mr. Satori solves it. Okay, I thought it was fun. I like this, really. And then beginning PG Wodehouse, which is a bookstagram thing for me. Like I really found him cause people on bookstagram are like, oh my gosh, Wodehouse. I'm like, okay, I should finally read him. I did not like Ukridge. Sorry, Ukridge is just unlikable to me. He was nasty. But I mean, this is back to Jeeves and Wooster's. So fun. Bertie Wooster kind of gets a surprise when he finds out in the newspaper that he's engaged. Turns out he's not. It was a trick. Honestly, like the romances here are just as bad as the romances in Christie. I do not know if it's a time period thing or maybe just because I'm not a romance reader. But I don't know, it was fun. Like there's no Jeeves. Poor Jeeves is on a not poor Jeeves. Jeeves is on a holiday. Poor Bertie has to deal without him, and like everyone basically misses Jeeves. But it's nice to see like Bertie with his Aunt Dahlia in the first chapter. Like they talk in this really ridiculous way. I don't believe regular people talk like it at all. And then like you see people that you've seen from other books, like Sir Roderick Glossop, who hates Bertie, but now he's like undercover as a butler. So it's quite funny. I do enjoy it. Like you do, like as you read more of these books, I'm finding like a lot of references to other books. So even though they're not like linear, like there's no overarching plot, you kind of feel like, oh my gosh, I recognize this character from this story, or like, I recognize the hideous cow creamer from Code of the Woosters, and it's like there is like a coherent universe. I mean, you knew it was a universe, but then you see like other references. I think Sarah Dessen does it a little bit in the stories. Like you see characters or like shops that pop up from other books where they were like the main player. Okay. So these three were lighter, and then the next three I have. So the next two are actually true crime. So the first one is The Five. I heard a lot of good things about this, and I honestly enjoyed it so much because I have read Jack the Ripper books on like a few, I think 3 or 4, probably less than 5, when I was really young. But I never really thought about who the victims were, and I think it's important. Like Jack the Ripper here is not important. What is important is the 5 women he killed and how they lived lives. And I think it's very indicative of like how like people in the 19th century were like on the brink of poverty, like one step wrong and you just end up on the street and you end up vulnerable to murderers who just go around and kill you. So this is not just like this is not really a true crime in the general like I'm gonna find out who the murderer is, but it's more of like this is the lives of people who were ignored, and that is a shame because they were people and their lives are just as important. Like why are we talking so much about Jack the Ripper when we have 5 women who were actually really interesting in their own right, and yeah, we just don't hear about them, right? It's unfair. So that was that. And also talking about women is Savage Appetite. I can't remember where I found this. I liked it a lot. It's actually four stories. So there is I wish people put like names in the summaries, cause like I'm really bad with names, right? So one of them is this Eras that creates crime scene dollhouses, which reminds me of that CSI episode where they had the dollhouses, right? So it's like we have Frances Glessner Lee. So she was really rich, and then after like in her mid-40s she started getting in crime, so she created miniature dollhouses for people to pretend to detect, like practice detecting. There was the woman who became part of the Mason family, so she was Lisa Stedman. She kind of got close to some of the Tate relatives, and then she kind of tried to profit off it. It's kind of weird. There was this landscape architect, so it was when I just read the book I knew it. Okay, Laurie Davis talking about the Damien and his friends, something tree. I know it, but I forgot it. West Memphis Tree, yes. I'm not like a huge fan, right? But like yeah, their love story and how she started advocating for him when she realized she had to. And then you have the last one, which is probably the most disturbing story. This was Lindsay, and she was a fan of the Columbine killers, and she actually planned a mass shooting. So I actually read something similar, like called Murder by Candlelight, which is about how like Victorian era England fell into true crime, and that sparks our like obsession with it, right? But that one was just a recollection of true crime stories, and you could find like really good detailed like standalone books about those 4 or 5 that he covers. This one was great because I really felt, I think it helps at the rate that Monroe is obviously a true crime fan, that she really explores why we get into this. Like, is it because, if we find out an answer, life feels tidier, that it feels safer, it feels less scary, or is it, how does it appeal to like the darker part of our instincts? And I thought, it focuses very narrowly on women, and it was brilliant. Like I thought it worked so well. Like it wasn't just 4 true crime stories, she talked so much more about why we were interested, why people like me also pick up true crime books. Like I veer between, oh no, we should like respect the crime, and I kind of want to find out everything that happened. I think podcasts I listen to, but sometimes I have to turn it off because it's like I feel like you're not respecting. Like I felt like Hae Min Lee got so ignored, and it kind of bugged me, especially since like the case was less one-sided than what the podcast presented on Serial, right? So yeah, so I thought this was respectful, insightful, and yeah, I would really recommend actually these 2 if you're really into true crime, honestly. Okay, so the last book on my list that I did not finish this. I thought I would love it because I love tea, I love all books tea, and I want to do a proper review because it's not really fair to books that I did not finish. So at least I want to talk a bit about why I did not. So you would think that if it's about sommelier, it would be a bit higher level. No, it's very much an introduction level thing, which I'm fine with. I like to read introduction books to see what people do, right? But there were some things, especially in the beginning, that kind of annoyed me. Like, for example, they talk about tea from like that takes you on the journey. And okay, I like that. But then like when you go to Kyoto and they're like Fleur de Geisha, a green tea center with cherry blossoms, I'm like, I thought it would be a lot more like tea from different provinces. Like, okay, you say Kyoto, let's talk about uji, let's talk about matcha, or like a good gyokuro, right? I mean Mumbai is chai, that's fine, but like Beijing's like there's the concubines. Okay, I'm kind of iffy at the names in the first place. Like, is that really what you're gonna think of China or like Japan? And like a tea to enjoy in Langria, suppose. I'm like, okay, but what tea is it? Is it like a Longting? Is it like a Tantong? You know, like I kind of like this one page kind of put me off the book a lot because it's not okay. Firstly, I think they're trying to push their own teas, which I don't mind, but the names are kind of off-putting, and like if you tell me about teas around the world, I expect to know about teas around the world. Like maybe like this single origin tea from Malawi that is like super cool, or you tell me about rooibos tea that you know helps to refresh you, or mate tea or something like okay, that would be cool. I would not mind. Okay, then there's some on like how to say water should never actually boil. I did talk to a friend who's like she did bioscience for her undergrad, and she was like, I don't think the oxygen changes that much. I think that depends on who you're talking to. Okay, so that's yeah, but I mean I know a lot of people who would make white tea at 100 degrees, and there are people who even think that if your tea is really good quality, it can stand up to boiling water. Like it may be a bit more astringent, but it's definitely doable. It depends on the tea quality. Like I also cold brew teas mainly when I feel like it's too delicate, or like sometimes if the tea has certain flaws, you must then by cold brewing. So I wouldn't like generally say, oh, never boil water, or like only keep okay, but uh yeah, so I kind of read a bit more. Some of the advice was okay, like you know porcelain cup for any kind of tea, or you want certain um yeah, it was fine when you hold tea tasting, Kung Fu Cha stuff. I quite like when they were talking about the different notes you can, although like honestly I don't taste as many notes as most people. It's kind of like sad. Yeah, but I did give up halfway because um yeah, I stopped at dark tea because they kind of like okay, there's like different kinds of dark tea, but then you talk about pu'er like sheng and shou, and I'm like no, there's other hei cha. Hei cha is a huge thing, so like it's one of my pet peeves honestly, like when people try to make it but they don't, or like I think when people talk, I think there's one about flavored teas and like how it's new or something, I can't really remember, but I remember thinking that oh no, but Louis was like reeling against flavored teas in as far back, and that's when you know tea honestly came into its right as a national obsession in China, right? Yeah, so there were so like I think the problem with this book for me was that firstly it wasn't advanced. It was very advanced, so it was very personal memoir. I can overlook some stuff that I disagree with. And the second was that I mean I quite like the concept of it, right? The second was that apart from small things like the tea around the world, which honestly bugged me I think a lot, quite a bit as you can tell. Apart from that, I guess like I'm just not a fan of like it was a bit too basic with errors that I didn't like, but it wasn't advanced enough or personal enough like a story about tea that I felt like I could ignore it. So there are a lot more better books out there about tea honestly, so I'm just gonna give this a pass and not finish it. Hopefully I can go to the library soon and I'll like look for another tea book, I guess. I kind of like reading different books about tea because you do learn different aspects. I should really try reading in more languages. Like I've been going through my Nihon-cha no Subete ga Wakaru Hon like for a very long time. It's really focused on Japanese, like especially Japanese greens, but it's great for that. I really need to practice Chinese more so that I can read my Chinese. It's horrible, like I'm Chinese, but I'm better, like more comfortable with Japanese, but it's this, right? Yeah, so these are my book stack from recently. I hope you found some that you liked. If you're in Singapore, I got this all from Jurong Regional, but I think quite a few, like, I know some, like maybe Savage Appetites and The Five are in not as many branches, but I believe like Christie and Woodhouse would be a lot easier to find. So if you know you're in Singapore and you are wondering what kind of books the library has, here is this. I will probably talk again with another video like this when I have borrowed and read more books. So I will see you all soon. Bye.